The Cobra effect. Why good intentions create disaster. Imagine for a moment that every action you take with good intentions, no matter how noble or well-meaning, could secretly plant the seeds of chaos. Think of the policies that promise prosperity but end in crippling crisis. The relationships where kindness slowly morphs into insidious control. Or the innovations that were meant to liberate humanity, but instead breed relentless dependency. What if I told you that behind many of humanity's greatest mistakes lies a powerful, fascinating phenomenon known as the Cobra effect? A critical lesson about the catastrophic dangers of unintended consequences. In this deep exploration, we will embark on a journey through philosophy, psychology, and history to uncover precisely how actions born from the purest of intentions can spiral into disasters we never anticipated. And here is my promise to you. As we move forward, I will reveal insights that may forever change the way you think about leadership, relationships, society, and even your most personal decisions. I must warn you, the final revelation we reach will be the most powerful of all, one that holds the key to truly mastering this profound paradox of life. Before we dive deep, I invite you to subscribe, leave a like, and share your thoughts. This space is dedicated to exploring the wisdom of great thinkers to inspire personal growth and provide the tools for navigating the challenges of modern life. By engaging with this video, you are taking part in a collective search for deeper understanding, and I promise you, what you will discover here may change the way you see not only the world, but also the self. Now, let us begin our exploration. The origin, incentives, and unforeseen reactions. The Cobra effect gets its name from a striking foundational historical story. During the period of British rule in India, the government noticed a dangerous problem. The streets of Delhi were infested with venomous cobras. In a sincere attempt to solve the issue, officials came up with what seemed like a clever, simple solution. They offered a monetary reward for every dead cobra brought to them. At first, the plan appeared brilliantly successful. People eagerly hunted the snakes and many were killed. Yet soon something entirely unexpected happened. Instead of simply eliminating wild cobras, clever locals began breeding them in secret, killing them only when they needed the reward money. When the government realized the massive manipulation and abruptly stopped the program, the breeders released their now worthless snakes into the surrounding wilderness. The streets of Delhi ended up with more cobras than before the policy was implemented. What began as an effort to reduce danger ended in an overwhelming disaster. This story illustrates a profound truth. When we attempt to control complex life systems in overly simplistic ways, ignoring the complexity of human behavior and the hidden consequences of our actions, we often create exponentially more problems than we solve. Psychologists refer to this as the law of unintended consequences. The Cobra effect is one of its most dramatic and memorable manifestations. But this is not just a historical curiosity. The exact same pattern repeats across time and across every dimension of life. Think about vast government policies that attempt to solve poverty but end up deepening generational dependency. Think about technological advances created to free humanity from toil, yet in many cases leading directly to social disconnection, chronic anxiety, or addictive behavior. Consider personal relationships where one partner's attempt to protect or care for the other slowly suffocates the bond with overprotection or insidious control. Again and again, we witness that good intentions, when not ruthlessly guided by wisdom and foresight, backfire in devastating ways. Why our simplistic logic fails? Why does this fundamental failure occur? At the core lies our limited, linear ability to predict how complex systems react to change. Human societies, global economies, and even intimate relationships are not simple machines with predictable input-output outcomes. They are living, dynamic organisms with countless variables, shifting emotions, and hidden motivations. When we impose simplistic solutions without understanding these hidden layers, the results can be catastrophic. As the economist and philosopher Friedrich Hayek warned, the fatal conceit of mankind is believing we can shape society entirely according to our rational will without unforeseen repercussions. This forces us to ask an uncomfortable but vital question. How many of our current solutions, whether in politics, education, health, or even our personal lives, are actually creating more long-term problems than they solve? Could it be that some of the greatest crises we face today are not the result of malice, but of utterly misguided good intentions? As you listen, I invite you to reflect. Can you recall a moment in your own life where you tried to help, but the outcome turned out undeniably worse than before? Perhaps you tried to solve a conflict with a friend and ended up making the rift deeper. Perhaps you gave advice with love, only to see it misunderstood and rejected. These small personal experiences are direct microcosms of the Cobra effect, powerful reminders that even at the individual level, our noble impulses can sometimes unleash unintended, profound pain. This realization is not meant to discourage you, but to awaken your critical awareness. Because when we truly understand the Cobra effect, we begin to grasp one of the most important truths about human action. Intention is not enough. As Viktor Frankl, the great psychiatrist and Holocaust survivor, once wrote, "Between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom." That space, between our initial good intention and the subsequent action, is precisely where wisdom must enter, or else the Cobra effect will inevitably take over. In the next stage of this exploration, we will uncover some of the most striking modern examples of the Cobra effect, cases where governments, corporations, and even families, acting with seemingly impeccable intentions, set off waves of destruction that no one could have possibly anticipated. And remember, the final insight I will reveal will not only help you recognize this pattern in the world around you, but will empower you to break free from it completely in your own life. Modern manifestations, from economics to environmentalism. The Cobra effect may sound like an ancient story from colonial India, but its shadow stretches across the modern world in ways far more alarming and relevant than we might want to admit. If in Delhi cobras multiplied because of short-sighted incentives, in today's societies the same flawed logic has shaped our economies, our politics, and even the dynamics of our personal lives. And every time we ignore the hidden complexity of human behavior, we risk turning our best solutions into systemic disasters. Let us begin with a chilling example from economics. In the 20th century, several governments attempted to control rent prices in major cities to make housing more broadly affordable. The intention was undeniably noble, to protect vulnerable families from the burden of excessive rents and ensure everyone had a safe place to live. But the unintended devastating consequence was immediate. Landlords stopped maintaining their existing properties. Construction of new housing slowed to a crawl. And in many cases, the quality of living conditions deteriorated drastically as investment dried up. Instead of helping tenants, the policy reduced available quality housing and worsened the urban crisis. This is a textbook case of the Cobra effect. A well-meaning solution triggering the exact opposite of what was intended. Another striking example comes from environmental policy. Consider the global attempts to reduce harmful fossil fuel emissions by promoting biofuels. On paper, this initiative seemed like a brilliant idea, renewable, clean, and supportive of global sustainability goals. Yet, the massive surge in demand for biofuel crops, like palm oil and soy,
led directly to vast accelerated deforestation, the catastrophic destruction of delicate ecosystems, and even food shortages in certain regions as agricultural land was tragically diverted from feeding people to fueling cars. Once again, a strategy designed to save the planet ended up contributing to new, widespread forms of destruction. History is replete with such painful paradoxes. During the Great Depression in the United States, government programs were implemented to destroy crops and livestock in order to artificially raise prices and stabilize the agricultural economy. The intention was economic
recovery, but the result was the scandalous waste of food at a time when millions of families were starving. It is painful to imagine that the very policies designed to help the suffering people ended up deepening their misery. Yet the Cobra effect is not confined to governments and monolithic institutions. It lives within our personal lives as well. Think of parents who, out of selfless love, try to shield their children from every single hardship. At first, this looks like ultimate care, but in the long run, it may tragically produce adults who are utterly unprepared for the inevitable challenges of life, who lack fundamental resilience, and who fear failure as an existential threat. The very protection meant to shield becomes the prison that weakens. Psychologists call this the danger of overprotection. It is a lesson echoed by thinkers like Carl Jung, who powerfully reminded us that the greatest burden a child must bear is the unlived life of the parents. The Cobra effect teaches us that human beings chronically underestimate complexity. We act on simplistic, linear logic. If A causes B, then removing A or rewarding B will fix the problem. But the world is not linear. It is full of feedback loops, perverse incentives, and countless hidden variables. The great systems theorist Donella Meadows once wrote that leverage points in systems are not intuitive. In fact, the ones that people most commonly push usually make matters worse. This insight reveals why so many good ideas ultimately fail. We push at the wrong, obvious points without realizing the catastrophic ripple effects that follow. Let me ask you, how many times have you seen people trying to solve problems in relationships or workplaces with quick, obvious fixes that ended up worsening the situation? Have you ever witnessed a leader who imposed more rules to stop mistakes only to create deeper frustration and outright rebellion among their team? These everyday examples are no different from the Cobras in Delhi. The details change, but the underlying principle remains: the human tendency to underestimate unintended consequences. And here lies a deeper philosophical point. The Cobra effect is not just about failed policies or misguided strategies. It is about the very condition of being human. Our actions are guided by limited knowledge, imperfect foresight, and emotions that sometimes blind us. As the philosopher Soren Kierkegaard once said, life can only be understood backward, but it must be lived forward. We act with hope, yet only later do we see the complex patterns and true consequences. The Cobra effect is a mirror, reflecting our own vulnerability to this existential paradox. But awareness changes everything. Once we recognize this pattern, we begin to cultivate humility in the face of complexity. We stop rushing to impose control, and instead begin to ask deeper, more challenging questions. What are the hidden incentives at play? What behaviors might this decision unintentionally encourage? What long-term effects might emerge beyond the immediate positive result? This shift of perspective transforms the Cobra effect from a curse into an invaluable teacher. Now, imagine if our leaders, our educators, our families, and even ourselves applied this wisdom before making major decisions. How different might our societies look? How many crises could have been entirely avoided? How much unnecessary suffering could have been prevented? In the next part of our journey, we will go even further. We will uncover how the Cobra effect appears in some of the most unexpected corners of modern life. Technology, medicine, and even our relentless pursuit of happiness. And as we move closer to the end, remember the final revelation I promised you will not only expose the deepest lesson hidden within the Cobra effect, but will also offer a key to transforming your life and decisions in ways you may never have considered before. The paradox of progress, technology, medicine, and happiness. We have already seen how the Cobra effect emerges in history, economics, and even family life. Yet, in our age of rapid technological growth, miraculous medical innovation, and relentless pursuit of personal happiness, the paradox of good intentions turning into harmful results has only grown more striking. In fact, the Cobra effect may be more relevant and more dangerous today than at any other time in human history. Let us begin with technology. Think about social media. At its birth, it was celebrated as a revolutionary tool to connect the world, to give everyone a voice, and to bring people closer together. The vision was almost utopian, a global digital town square where ideas and cultures could flourish in harmony. But what tragically unfolded? Instead of uniting humanity, social media platforms have often fueled bitter division, aggressively spread misinformation, dangerously eroded attention spans, and ironically, fostered anxiety and profound loneliness. The very platforms designed to empower individuals often end up enslaving them to algorithms engineered purely for engagement rather than truth or connection. The Cobra effect here is painfully clear. What was meant to liberate communication has in many ways shackled it. The same paradox is starkly visible in medicine. Take the example of antibiotics. They were once universally hailed as a miracle of modern science, saving countless lives from bacterial infections. Yet their overuse, driven by the good, protective intention of preserving health, has led to one of the greatest medical crises of our time: antibiotic resistance. Now, diseases once easily treated are becoming deadly again. This happened not because antibiotics failed, but because their very success invited systemic misuse and overdependence. A cure born from compassion and innovation created a new, far larger threat than the one it defeated. Even in the realm of psychology and personal growth, we see similar patterns. Consider the modern obsession with happiness. Entire industries promise us joy. Self-help books, apps, courses, and motivational seminars. The intention is pure, to help people live fulfilling lives. Yet, paradoxically, the more people aggressively chase happiness as a direct goal, the more elusive and fleeting it becomes. Psychologists like Viktor Frankl argued that happiness cannot be pursued directly. It only arises as a byproduct of meaning, purpose, and contribution. By obsessing over happiness, society often cultivates the opposite: anxiety, comparison, and chronic dissatisfaction. The Cobra effect once again reminds us that even the frantic pursuit of joy can breed sorrow when the underlying mechanism is fundamentally misunderstood. This pattern is not just theoretical, it is deeply personal. Imagine a person who, wanting to support a loved one struggling with difficulties, constantly offers immediate solutions and advice. The intention is pure love, yet the result may be resentment as the loved one feels unheard, controlled, or subtly diminished. Or consider someone who works tirelessly to secure financial stability for their family, only to become emotionally absent from their children's lives. The pursuit of security unintentionally creates emotional distance, and the very thing they wanted to protect, the family bond, ultimately weakens. These stories are the everyday, tragic faces of the Cobra effect. At this point, we must pause and ask,
What is it that blinds us so often? Why do human beings repeatedly fall into the trap of believing that good intentions alone guarantee good results? The answer lies in a deep psychological bias. We tend to significantly overvalue our intentions and chronically underestimate the true complexity of consequences. It is comforting, deeply comforting, to believe that if our heart is in the right place, the perfect outcome will simply follow. But reality is far more demanding. It requires relentless foresight, deep humility, and an immediate understanding that intentions alone are never enough. Philosophers and psychologists throughout history have warned us of this trap. Immanuel Kant, for example, emphasized the importance of duty and principle. Yet, he also acknowledged that the moral worth of actions is judged not only by intent, but by the broader impact they have. Likewise, Carl Gustav Jung reminded us that the shadow, those hidden, unintended parts of ourselves and our actions, often surfaces with devastating force when we least expect it. In the Cobra effect, we see the public shadow of our noblest yet naive efforts. But if this is true, what is the way forward? Should we cease acting out of fear of unintended consequences? Absolutely not. The ultimate lesson of the Cobra effect is not paralysis, it is wisdom. It calls us to act with dramatically greater awareness, to meticulously examine the potential ripple effects of our choices, and to cultivate patience in the face
of complexity. It urges us to recognize that life is not a straight line, but an interconnected web. And every action vibrates through that web in ways we may not see immediately. Here is the profound challenge. How can we design actions, whether policies, innovations, or personal choices, that actively minimize the Cobra effect? The answer begins with humility. We must accept that our knowledge is limited, that complexity cannot be conquered by quick, simplistic fixes. Instead, we must embrace constant feedback, adapt, and remain open to changing course the moment reality reveals unintended results. In systems theory, this is called learning by feedback. And in life, it is called wisdom. Now, reflect with me for a moment. In your own life, where might you be unknowingly breeding cobras? Where might your best, most persistent intentions be planting seeds of unintended harm? It could be in the way you approach your career, your family, your health, or even your own inner growth. These questions are not meant to induce guilt, but to awaken a powerful, actionable awareness. Because awareness is the first step to transformation. In the final part of this journey, we will uncover the deepest insight the Cobra effect has to offer. We will explore how this paradox contains a hidden key to not only understanding the world, but mastering our role within it. The final revelation will show you that while good intentions alone may not be enough, there is a higher path that transforms them into powerful, life-changing outcomes. And when you truly grasp this truth, the Cobra effect will no longer be a curse. It will become one of your greatest teachers. The final revelation: from control to responsibility. Throughout this journey, we have explored the Cobra effect as a timeless paradox that appears in history, economics, technology, medicine, and even our most intimate personal relationships. We have seen how noble intentions can tragically trigger unintended harm, and how human beings often underestimate the immense complexity of life. But now it is time to uncover the deepest, most liberating lesson hidden within this phenomenon. The insight that has the power not only to change how you view the world, but also how you live within it. The truth is this: the Cobra effect is not merely a story about mistakes, it is a mirror of human limitation. But it is also an invitation to transcend those limitations. The final revelation is that the Cobra effect teaches us to evolve from the illusion of control to the wisdom of responsibility. Good intentions may not guarantee good outcomes, but conscious responsibility,
guided by humility, discernment, and reflection, can transform even failures into exponential growth. Think of it this way. The British officials in India were not malicious. They simply believed they could control reality with a single, simple incentive. Governments that imposed rent controls were not cruel. They wanted to help families.
Parents who overprotect children are not heartless. They are loving. In all of these cases, the mistake was not in the heart, but in the vision. It was the failure to see the bigger picture, the failure to anticipate the systemic consequences, the failure to ask, what comes next? And this is where your transformation lies. The most powerful way to overcome the Cobra effect is to embrace systems thinking, to train ourselves to look beyond the immediate result and to see how actions ripple through time and affect the whole. When we cultivate this habit, we shift from being mere actors of good intentions to becoming architects of wise outcomes. The philosopher Aristotle once wrote that true virtue lies not only in good intention, but in the right action, at the right time, in the right measure. This is precisely the antidote to the Cobra effect. It is not enough to act with a good heart. We must act with discernment. We must balance our passion with perspective, our urgency with patience, and our intention with foresight. Consider how this applies to your own life. Imagine a conflict at work where you feel the urge to step in and solve it quickly. A good intention might push you to impose a solution, but wisdom would pause and ask, what deeper, unspoken needs are at play here? What might be the unintended consequences of my intervention? By pausing, by listening, by seeking the hidden layers, you create space for solutions that do not backfire. The same is true in relationships. Instead of overprotecting someone you love, responsibility means empowering them. Instead of controlling, you support. Instead of fixing, you listen. Responsibility is love in its highest, most mature form, because it profoundly respects the freedom and growth of the other person. And at the level of society, the lesson is no different. The Cobra effect warns us against simplistic silver bullet solutions to complex problems. Poverty, inequality, environmental crises, and even the search for happiness cannot be solved with quick incentives or surface-level fixes. They demand deeper vision, long-term cooperation, and the humility to adapt when reality resists our expectations. This is why the Cobra effect is one of the most important lessons for leaders, innovators, parents, and anyone seeking personal growth. It calls us to move beyond the innocence of believing that good intentions are automatically enough, and to step into the maturity of recognizing that wisdom, responsibility, and awareness must actively guide our actions. But here is the most liberating insight of all. Even when the Cobra effect strikes, even when our best intentions go tragically wrong, life offers us a second, powerful gift. Every unintended consequence becomes an opportunity to learn. Failure is not the end of the story. It is the crucial feedback we need to grow. The snakes released in Delhi were a disaster, yes, but they also left us with a timeless lesson about human behavior and the dangers of short-sightedness. In this way, the Cobra effect is not just a warning, it is a teacher that never stops speaking. So let me ask you one final question. What will you do with this knowledge? Will you continue to live believing that intentions alone are enough to guarantee success? Or will you rise to the higher calling of responsibility, foresight, and wisdom? The choice is yours. Every day, in small and great ways, you have the power to turn good intentions into meaningful, lasting outcomes. You have the power to transform the Cobra effect from a curse into a reliable guide. As we close this exploration, remember, the world is complex, life is unpredictable, and consequences often surprise us. But within that uncertainty lies your opportunity to grow, to act with profound awareness, and to become a force for genuine, transformative good. Do not fear the Cobra effect. Learn from it, rise above it,
and let it shape you into someone whose impact reaches far beyond mere intentions and creates real, lasting change. If you found value in this journey, I invite you to subscribe, share this message with others, and leave your reflections in the comments. Perhaps you have lived your own Cobra effect, an unintended consequence that taught you a painful yet transformative lesson. Share it, because your story may help someone else see what they cannot yet see. And above all, carry this truth with you. Intention without wisdom creates chaos, but intention guided by wisdom creates transformation. The Cobra effect is not the end. It is the beginning of a deeper, more responsible way of living. Thanks for listening.